Hello, everyone. I am Jacqueline Wittes, and you can probably tell I'm not here with Kate Ball. And while I am a little sad at that, a lot sad at that, we will reschedule her call. And that's the nature of live that I've said all along, is that sometimes you're going to sometimes I'll have this great experience, and then sometimes we'll have internet problems, and sometimes our guest won't be able to join us. And that's what happened today. But that does not mean I don't have things to talk about or stories to tell. And I would encourage anyone, if you have any questions at all, to please add them to chat. I'm here. It can be one-on-one, or well, not one-on-one, but group one, where we just talk about whatever maybe happening in your life with job search and whatnot. And since I can always yammer, I wanted to also just, if people don't know me, introduce a little bit more of who I am and why I do what I do. I actually overcame a really long employment gap. It was almost 20 years full time. I always keep recalculating that because I'm like, that's not actually how long it was. But when I think about the full time work, it was definitely that. I had a lot of iterations of myself where I was a personal trainer for a while, a cake decorator before that. So I always say one led to the other. And from there, I just kind of, my husband was like, well, when he retired military, so I was a military spouse too, stay-at-home mom for a very long time, a homeschooler. I did all of these other things. And then my husband kept saying, well, what is your passion? What would you like to do? And one day I was thinking, what would it take to work for Disney? And we lived in Las Vegas at that time. So a bit of a far stretch. But at that point, said, my tech skills may be rusty as far as the high technical things, but the soft skills are there. And a lot of the things that companies are looking for still there. So I said, I'm going to get back into tech. Now that journey took me 3 years. And that's one of the reasons I do what I do. I ended up landing at Microsoft, and that was a massive Cinderella story, really, when it comes to the job world. So do what I do because it took so long for me to overcome that career gap, that I really wanted to be able to give back to the community. And I started using LinkedIn before I overcame the career gap, but I had no idea what to do with it, zero. So I just started telling myself I never want the career gap to be a problem again. So I started learning how to network and how to connect with people. And it was a foreign concept for me from the start. At first, I really, truly, my hands were shaking the first time I ever sent a connection request and didn't know what to say. Very clumsy through the whole thing, but that didn't mean it wasn't a learning opportunity. And over time, I started finding people who were starting LinkedIn about the same time I was. So when I found those people that were just learning, we kind of partnered together. What does it take to grow on LinkedIn? What does it take to become someone? When I first started, I said, I want to be a top voice. Now, I did not understand LinkedIn growth at that point. So when I put that wish out there, I started realizing as I grew that I didn't know how to scale yet and how to be present for a lot of people. So that was part of my learning when I started to grow on LinkedIn. I do want to pause one more time in case anybody is here for Kate. We have to reschedule her call, but I'm still just here open to, I mentor a lot of people on job search. I love using LinkedIn, love learning about it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to chime in. I will answer live as we go. And I am also very sad that Kate's not here. But I was telling a little bit of my story, how I overcome a really long employment gap. And then I ended up working for Microsoft. And when I talked about the career, or the overcoming the career gap story as being a challenge, the next challenge really came also when I pivoted into a professional role after nearly 20 years away from it. I didn't know anything about corporate culture. I remember how much the emails themselves were intimidating to me when I started getting them in my inbox, and people had well thought out sections and links and talking about things I had no idea what they were talking about. So imposter syndrome was, I can't even tell you how big it was at that time. I don't think I have a scale on what it really looked like to have the fears that I had from overcoming that gap to actually being employed. I kept saying the first year, I felt like the Charlie Brown teacher was going off over my head. Wah, 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 wah. Just didn't know what people were talking about. And prior to that, I had gone after certifications and thought that's what will make me a great employee, is if I do all these certifications. And that's not what made me a great employee. In fact, the certifications that I did are helpful. They helped me actually when the networking opportunity that I had met is like opportunity and presence and preparation all met together. When that happened, it really was the certification that kind of bridged the gap between the opportunity because they were looking for somebody with Network Plus to do a cohort, educational cohort that was experimental. And I was able to get into that program, very appreciative of it, but it really was, I was in person networking. I was saying all the wrong things and then learning to slowly say the right things. And with the one certification I had, which was Network Plus at the time, I got into the cohort, and the cohort was all about cloud server administration. Now, when I got hired, my role had nothing to do with cloud server administration. So if you're out there thinking certifications will help me get a role in tech, it may help you in a small measure kind of speak to your expertise, but it's possible that it's more going to speak to I can learn new things. Look how I learned this thing and became an expert at it, and I was able to pass these exams. It's possible you'll get hired in a role that has nothing to do with that. In fact, some of the certification process taught me a lot about what I didn't want to do. I found that I struggled through not the so how do I word this? Because it wasn't the tech itself that I struggled through. It was sometimes the class that I was doing felt like it was teaching me the software, but not a lot of the broader concepts. So I had a lot more fear. And I think even going into a role where I wasn't expected to know anything might have been an advantage, but it did take a very, very long time to onboard. Truly, I spent the first year wondering if I was going to have to pay back the sign-on bonus because I was going to get fired at some point for just not getting it or not knowing what to do. And then eventually things did start making sense. And then I started to actually be good at what I was doing. And then I ended up switching to another team to try something new. Struggled through that. Some of what I can mentor people through is just the struggle of shifting into new roles, new opportunities after you have practiced on something else or gotten really good at something and then switching to something else, and it becomes so new all over again. And when I switched from release management to product management, there was so much new that I didn't really know where to start with that. Now, I learned, right? I had a very patient manager who let me struggle and well, she had helped when I asked, but a lot of floundering on how to do this right. And then eventually things do start kicking in. And at the 6-year point, after working for Microsoft, I was laid off. And now that brought out a new passion for me. It's the one where I want to help other people even before layoffs. So I was able to apply all of the networking that I'd done since I got the role to my own layoff, where I was able to build this network and have it to leverage in the event of a layoff. So it all did kind of come full circle where I was like, oh, I'm helping job seekers. I'm mentoring job seekers weekly. And then I became a job seeker again. And that's where we are today, is on that part of the journey where I'm going through all of the layoff stories, the emotions, all of the funk around it, and then trying to grasp the positivity. And in what surprised me is I had been working on a side business to help people network professionally before a layoff, before they needed it, kind of that confidence to take away the fear of, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I would do if I got laid off. I haven't looked at my resume in 10 years. And there's that fear of, what do I do if this happens? So I wanted to start addressing that for people before they ever got laid off and say, hey, you can have this network there in case you need it. And that's where that passion started building. When I got laid off, I immediately, when I turned on the green open to work banner, it got so overwhelming that I didn't know what to do with the support. And I really put it out there just a little too soon when I said, okay, I'm open to work here. And I hadn't even really, it was the same day I got laid off. So I didn't even process the layoff, the emotion, what was going to happen next, what those next steps looked like. So people offered to help, and I wasn't even ready to receive it at that point. So I ended up turning off that open to work banner within 24 hours because of how overwhelming all of the encouragement, the sending me job links, asking for resumes, all of these things, it just got to be a lot. And I'll pause one more time in the story just to let people know Kate was not able to join us today, but we are rescheduling that. I just wanted to still go live because I have people who are interested in the content that I talk about as well. So if anybody has questions at any point, or you want me to pivot the conversation, this is not prescribed, it's not scripted. I'm willing to talk about what you would like to hear about. But until then, I'm going to keep talking about my layoff story and where I am now, what's happening, and some of the emotion that I'm going through, some of the pieces that are falling into place, and the things that I feel like I'm chasing balls of yarn that are rolling down a hill. And that I was just at the point where I had already been mentoring people and wanted to start helping more people be layoff ready, is what I call it. And sometimes there's a misconception of what does layoff ready mean. And some people think, oh, it's about financial stuff and she's going to be a financial advisor. No, I'm not. I feel like that's a very privileged stance to take, is, oh, you're working, make sure you're dumping all of this money into a place in case you work harder and make more money so you can dump it all into this place and then you'll be layoff ready. Not everybody has that sort of extra income. And I acknowledge there are so many people that if I were to talk to that, it feels a little tone deaf to what people might actually be going through and what fears are actually present in a layoff. For my own story, I have 2 daughters that are starting college in the fall. And well, one's already she's going to be her second year, but we'll have 2 in college. And then this layoff came and I'm like, how do I even pay for these kids to make sure they graduate? And I know there's loans and whatnot, and we're maxing all that out as much as we can, but I want to be able to give them as much debt freedom as possible. And now I'm like, where's my own income coming from? So I decided to do something really risky. And that was to focus on this business for a little bit and take all of the experience of overcoming a career gap, pivoting into new things, working in tech for 6 years, and then being laid off, to bring a cohesive story and help people at whatever stage they're in. I always tell people, if you're interested, if you're not sure what to talk about on social media or connecting or networking or anything, talk to yourself a year ago, maybe even just 2 weeks ago. What have you learned in those 2 weeks? Your story is valid. Someone will look at what you do and think, wow, that's so hard, and I don't think I could ever do that. But the reality is you can be that coach for that other person and bring them along on the journey and add value to their life. And it doesn't matter if you have been just out of college or just gosh, even if you're high school, like, you could talk to middle schoolers about what they're going to go through. You're always ahead of somebody on the journey, and those things are valid for you to talk about. Your story matters. You matter. The people that you influence will look up to you for that. And it's such a special gift that we've been given, is that opportunity to turn around and help other people. So I really encourage people to just be bold for a minute and try, especially if your network's smaller. If your network's smaller, you have less people to see if you mess up. And I would even say there's no such thing as messing up unless you go on some crazy political rant and end up being very polarizing or doing something of that nature. Otherwise, you're probably going to be just fine posting about your story, what you've been through, what you've learned, and helping other people along the way. So there's my side spiel on it. I'll get back to where I am in the layoff story and the business story. I was laid off on May 12th, and my last official day was July 12th from Microsoft. And during that time after layoff, there was a lot of, oh, I'm okay here, and everything's going to be just fine. And there's almost an adrenaline to a piece after layoff that's easy to make your normal. But then when the official layoff day came, when I knew I was no longer actually a Microsoft employee, not even on paper, any of that, I started, and it was 60 days later. So I started just kind of feeling the true, almost sadness of missing business meetings, of not being in the daily lives of my coworkers. And then often even feeling like the stuff that I'm doing with a business feels like pretend, like I'm playing instead of actually buckling down and working. And I know that's part of it is because I really enjoy what I work on. And if I could have any wish for anybody, it would be that you find that thing that is a joy to work on, that it feels like play, that it feels like you're having too much of a good time. It's certainly relieving stress, even though there's still the financial stress that I'm thinking about. It relieves the work burnout feeling. So there are multiple paths you could take if you are laid off. And I acknowledge again that I have a privileged perspective because we're a dual income home, or we're a dual income home. So I'm taking this time to just answer the question of what if. What if I try this business with all that I am? I have to know what the answer is. I have to know the end of that story. I have to know the outcome, or else I will spend the rest of my life wondering what if I had tried. And I might get into a new job where all of a sudden I'm feeling just overwhelmed all over again, and layoff anxiety all over again. And even more so because it happened, and I might be hyper vigilant on any little thing like, oh, is the company doing okay? Is another layoff coming? All those pieces would probably be in the back of my mind. So for now, I am trying a new thing, and it is scary and it's not easy. It's fun, but it's not easy. There are so many questions that I have, like, am I reaching people? Is what I'm doing, does it matter? All of this are pieces that I have to work through and coach myself through. And I just believe that even if I were full on job searching, that's also what I would be going through in that same way. Is, am I going to find anything? Will anybody ever see me? Will anybody ever hear me? Will they give me the chance that I need to be successful, show them that I can be successful, and show them that I have value to add to their company and their organization? They're all doubts, and we all have them, especially when there's so much uncertainty. And that's kind of where I am, is I'm trying a new thing. I'm terrified. I'm having a blast. I'm terrified. I'm seeing progress, and then I see setbacks, and I see progress, and I see setbacks. And that's one of the reasons I do invite people that have been successful in it, because I know they've been in this space. But I also think there's so much value in sitting where I am today in this space and saying, a lot of times I'm really, really okay. And sometimes I'm really not okay. And that's all part of the journey. And eventually I'm going to be able to talk to the people who are just starting out and say, I've been there. Let me show you what worked for me. And even if you're job searching right now and you're wondering if you're ever going to close that gap, get to something new, store up your wisdom, because you're going to be able to share that to other people eventually and say, let me show you what works. In fact, one of the things I love doing is when I see people celebrating a new job on LinkedIn, I'll just go and comment and say, congratulations on your new role. Can you tell me what worked? I mentor job seekers. I'd like to be able to pass on information that works for you and what worked so that they can have it. And what I'm seeing often is that people are saying it was networking that got me there. It was doing something a little bit different than just cold applying to jobs. And that's why I am also so passionate about being bold in networking and telling yourself that it's going to be okay. Like, we'll all have our last day, but it's probably not going to be because you sent a message to somebody on LinkedIn. I have not heard that being one of the ways that expire us. So it's worth just reaching out to someone, asking for a connection, asking for them to help you in some way. You may get no response, but it's also a numbers game. And I just said ask for a thing, but I also would give the advice as well, don't ask for too big of a thing, but asking for a connection first, seeing if you read their profile, see if there's things you have in common, and then try and connect on that personal level. But the number one thing I will say over and over again for people networking is to go interact on other people's social media content. I'm learning multiple ways, multiple platforms now to network that are not just LinkedIn. And those are often just so much fun too, that it's okay to experiment with different places. There are Facebook groups for people that are experiencing layoff. In fact, I have one right now that's called the Layoff Crew, or Layoff comeback crew layoff support. That's what it's called. So you're welcome to even join that and find other people who are experiencing layoffs and needing that support as well. As far as how I help, I'm not going to stay on this call too much longer because I've got the wrong title, if nothing else, right? It's letting go of the corporate playbook and writing your own story. And I did touch a little bit on writing your own story, but it's also now I want to say share your own story. And as far as what I do now, I do actually try to help people understand networking at its basis. I have a free guide that teaches you how to use AI and prompts to make it sound a lot more like you. I will never say to use that blindly without editing it and making sure it does actually carry your voice and carries your opinions and carries your experience and feels like you. In fact, I talk about that in the guide, but it is free to you. You can just go to my website, which is brand new. Also, I'm very excited about it. And it is www.jacquelinewittes.com. I hope you'll enjoy the resources that are there. I'm going to keep adding to it if you are really just needing a place to stop and get some one-on-one mentorship or interested in doing a little bit more one-on-one coaching where I can help you through your specific LinkedIn profile and where your problems are that you're finding. I will certainly partner with you in that. So you're welcome to book a call there. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day and that you gleaned some sort of wisdom on this call. And again, I will look forward to when Kate can join us because she has so much spunk and sass and such a great personality. I cannot wait to have her join us. But for now, thanks for joining me and have a fantastic day. Make sure you watch some of the other podcasts. In fact, one of the very first ones Sarah Moody was on, she also has a layoff story where she was able to build a business. And then we have, gosh, there's so many that are all of, I could go on and on about my guests because they're all just brilliant. And I would love for you to watch their content until Kate can join us. But thanks for being here. Have a fantastic, wonderful day.